at when I tried to read it to him. So we'll see how I do with you tonight. I do want to start by acknowledging that I'm a visitor on this territory from the Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe. Until I haven't been back to Takaranto for a long time. I'm used to saying Lekwungen, that's where I live. I'm grateful to be a visitor on their territory and for the beautiful work that they have done to maintain this land that we enjoyed this evening. I asked some very wise people in my life how to construct this speech, and I was encouraged to tell stories. So I'm going to tell two little short stories off the top, which I think will give some context and explain what will follow. The first is when I was still actively singing and I was living in Victoria, and I was asked to sing at a private birthday party for our board president. It was actually for Patrick Corrigan, who's turning 50, who runs Montreal Opera now. But it was at David's house, and all the singers here will know what it is to go to a private party and sing at a private function. And it's a lovely thing to do. And I was sitting in the living room singing, and everyone is sort of 5 feet away, which opera singers know is way too close. And like, do you look at them? Do you look over their heads? What do you do? They're like super close. And I was singing, and when I finished, I looked at David Flaherty, and he was crying. And it's not because it was a sad song. It's because it's so incredible to feel the human voice and to be close to it, as we were tonight. And it occurred to me that night that that was something everyone should get to experience. And that's the beauty of this art form. And we save it for donors. And it really started to turn a wheel in my mind. The other story, if you flash forward, I'm working at Pacific Opera. I'm working on community engagement. It's my very first year in that job. And I've worked diligently with 2 people facilitating a young artist program at the Victoria Native Friendship Center. And we had talked a lot about what would be useful, appropriate, what would make sense. I wanted to give them something that would be useful. And so we thought we'd come up with a pretty good first night, which was to bring in a makeup artist and a wig maker and let them enjoy what it is to transform someone through the magic of theater. So when I get there, and I feel like I've done my homework and I'm in a good place, and because I'm old, I bring Bugs Bunny's What's Up with Opera Doc, like that means anything to you? Anyway, so I'm trying to set it up. The kids are teenagers. They're like laying on the couch, they're laying on the floor, they're sort of sleeping, they're on their phones. And one of the young men rolled over and looked at me and he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Oh, I'm Rebecca and I'm here from Pacific Opera and we're gonna have a little presentation and we're gonna do something together." And he just said, "Why should I care?" Yeah. It's a good question, right? When I became very curious about the award I had won, I asked for what this award was about, and I know a bit more about it now. But what I really went to do was to research, not a Ristich, because I thought that would probably explain exactly why I'm standing before you tonight. And the articles I read about Nada tell me that she's a woman who encourages collaboration, curiosity. She's interested about who comes to the arts and how that helps make communities resilient and successful. And I thought, okay, we're aligned on that. The Oxford Dictionary says that to innovate is to make changes in something established, especially by introducing new methods, ideas, or products. Receiving an award titled Changemaker is very weird when I know that I work in an art form that doesn't really like change. That's the laugh of self-recognition. This is an art form that defines itself by tradition and how things have always been done. And that's usually celebrated those who fit best into the tradition. And I've struggled the last few weeks to figure out what I needed to say to all of you tonight and what I want our industry to know about change and change making. I am humbled and honored to receive this award. I have worked in the arts for 35 years now, on stage and off, and I remember coming to these awards when Maureen Forrester was recognized and being so excited because I ran into her in the bathroom. I am not a legendary artist in that vein, but I am driven to innovate, to create things that didn't exist before. And I think I stand before you because I'm stubborn. At one time I had the Twitter handle Last Mezzo Standing. And to be the last one standing, I had to innovate me. What I did, how I worked, and I had to really imagine what a successful career looked like. Because for me, it was not going to be a string of international big house opera debuts. It was going to be something else. When I was writing scripts for Denise Fall during my time at CBC when I was guest hosting at Saturday Afternoon at the Opera, which was a very big career highlight for me, when I would submit my script to her, she would tell me that I had way too much process in all of my pitches. And that the listener, I had to think about the listener who was a fan of opera, but I couldn't put myself in the place of the fan. And Timothy Vernon, who is the artistic director of Pacific Opera and a longtime friend and mentor, used to tell me this great story. He said, Christa Ludwig famously said in an interview when asked about the next young hot singer, what did she think about this singer? And she confessed to the interviewer, so she didn't know who they were. She said, opera is my profession. I am not a fan. Me too. I am not a fan of opera, but opera is my tool. I'm an artist. It's how I express my story. It's how I express your story. It's how I connect with the world. It's how I build relationships. It's how I make the world a better place. It's through this art form. It is so far from my life. When I told my dad that I wanted to be an opera singer, I woke him up. I was 16. I was in a summer program with Kathy Dominy and my husband, Mike Lenz, at Couchiching. And I came in and woke my dad up one night after rehearsal and said, you know, Dad, I think I want to be an opera singer. And he said, no. He said, Becky, promise me you will never sing in a bar. And that's what my dad knew about opera. He didn't anticipate opera pubs, you see. That's for another time. I don't sing in a bar, still. I stand here on the shoulders of my ancestors. My ancestors were part of the Georgian Bay Métis community, and my mother's side is full of British gardeners and farmers. My dad's father came from a German background and was a logger. So I think a lot about the Métis way, hunters and gatherers, and people who respect natural law and listening to the world around me. And I think that's the source of my innovation. It's their worldview I carry. What is my gift to give? How can I care for my family, my community? How can I look 7 generations out and be sure I'm leaving it better than I found it? For the young ones who come next, my ensemble friends in the back. We are all connected. Hierarchy is a system created that obscured this, but we are healthier, stronger, and happier when we collaborate, when we listen deeply to each other, and when we are invested in the success of our communities. I see opera as a service organization for public good, and we are wasting our opportunity if we don't work with the up-and-coming artists and have them guide us in working this way. We need to make space for them. We need to encourage them. We need to let them lead sometimes creatively. The opera company is an immense resource, and we must be generous in sharing these resources with those who make the art. I do not want to see opera put away as a museum piece and not relevant any longer because we can't give up our idea of traditional opera. I think about opera as a tool. I often say that my voice and singing was a way to sort of get art into my mouth. And so I think opera is our popcorn. And it carries the butter, which is our service to our collective mouths. Now is the time in my world to lift up our opera artists as whole artists. A tiny percentage of singers will be conduits of Mozart and Verdi at La Scala, and our industry is full of amazing people who could come to be part of our opera world. And if they do, if they have a hand in making it, singing it, creating it, imagine who might come and see our art form, who might be inspired, healed, moved, and whose days and years are better because opera is part of their life. We sell opera short when we fight these changes in our field. Equity, diversity, inclusion, new works, new ways of making work, devised work, full rehearsal room collaboration, sharing the power of the sound wave of the human voice with many in surprising spaces. That's the innovation I want to bring forward. Opera can be so many things for so many people. I have to give particular thanks tonight that I have been able to realize myself in this innovation working at Pacific Opera, to Ian Rye, who was so kind to come out tonight. Ian is someone who saw something in me that I did not even see in myself. And when he spoke to me about the role that I had at Pacific Opera, it was a job that did not exist at that time. But he had an inkling of what he wanted to see. It was work he was doing off the side of his desk. and I am eternally grateful that you made space for me at the company, and Ian gives me the freedom to create as an artist in community settings and to support young artists, and that is bold and brave work. So thank you, Ian. Métis elder Marcel Labelle and Anishinaabe elder Renee Mishaki gave me a name several years ago, and it's Manganawa in Anishinaabe, which translates in sort of a way to big voice. And when they gave it to me, I said, well, it's kind of obvious, like I'm an opera singer. And I thought it was kind of silly, but I have come to see the wisdom in the name, because I'm actually here to amplify other people's voices and to make sure these voices are heard in the rooms that they are not yet in. I've been taught that a name is something you protect and that you live into, and you have to honor it and you have to do it justice. And I am committed to this as my practice as an innovator and my obligation to make it better for the next generation. And I look forward to when they are the big voice in the room. Thank you very much.